Hi, my name is Carlos Feliciano, and I'm from the Fall 2019 EFWA team, and I'll be explaining the implementation of user story EFRT 137. So let me start off with this. This user story was actually started by the summer 2019 team, and they laid a very, very solid foundation for us. I don't think I would have gotten anywhere without their initial work. They did a very good job. So with that being said, let me just explain what I've done. Right, so here we are at the subscription management page, and we're logged in as an administrator, of course. Um, so let me explain where this table comes from and where we get the data. So this publisher row here, this is actually coming from this here, where they're making a URL action to the publisher controller. The action is called get list of publishers. So that would be here. So we're retrieving all of the publishers we have in the database, and it's just some important information about them. And we're returning it as a JSON object. And then from here, as you can see, we're formatting the table and the various buttons on click, pause, expert advisor, terminal, stop, and all that. Okay, so now let me show you where we're getting the information for a subscriber. That would be that is here, format format publishers table. And so we're making a call to get list of subscribers in the publisher controller, which is this function here. And again, we're just retrieving information about the subscribers for a specific publisher. So it would do this for each publisher. It would retrieve the list of subscribers and return the information as a JSON object. Right. So let's get into the actual functionalities here. So this connect terminal button would actually be, let me show you here. Let's go back to the get list of publishers. So that is this link here that says, are you sure you want to shut down the terminal? Are you sure you want to start the terminal? And what it actually is a URL action to these actions in the publisher controller. So you can see here, are you sure you want to shut down the terminal? So that's what it's doing. So if you were to disconnect the terminal, it would make a call to this action, disconnect terminal in the publisher controller. And then from here, it actually contacts, it makes a call to disconnect terminal in the MT4 terminal manager. And then if it actually disconnected the terminal, then we'll reflect those changes onto into the publisher and subscriber tables. Well, if it's a publisher. If not, then we'll do it into the subscriber table, because both of these call the same action. So now, right, so now let's get into the actual buttons here. So we have the play button, pause button, stop button. That's actually what all this is. So to start, um, we'd call this function here start expert advisor terminal. Now let's actually go look at what it's actually doing. So this is a URL action to start terminal in the publisher controller. And again, if it's a publisher, it handles that case, or if it's a subscriber, it'll also do that. So yeah, and then it makes a call to the start terminal function in the MT4 terminal manager. Now there are actually two, so the start, stop, and pause terminal functions, as well as the connect and disconnect terminal functions, are actually these functions actually also exist in the MT4 terminal controller as well. So but these are the versions for the publisher controller, since we also have to update the publisher or subscriber tables in the database. Right, so let me actually walk you through this. So we go to MT4 Terminal Manager. Then here you can see connect terminal, disconnect terminal, pause terminal, all these functions. So these are actually shared by the publisher controller and the MT4 terminal controller in the effort project. They both of those controllers make calls to these functions. So let's say we wanted to start a terminal. Okay, so now this will make a post request to the terminal controller in the web API. And we're passing in the ID of the terminal so we can identify which one to start. So that's this function here. And then from here, we're actually contacting the terminal service, which is also in the web API. That would be here, to retrieve this particular terminal based on the ID that we passed. And then we'll call this function here to actually begin the process of starting the terminal. So that would be here. Okay, so from here, this here doesn't apply because this is for resume. What we're interested right now is start. So we go down here to else. Right, so we add all these query parameters, we update the current state of the database, and we're actually making a post request to the VPS web API, which will actually start the MetaTrader terminal for us. Right, so now, as for adding publishers or adding subscribers, so let's use add publisher as an example. So let's actually see what this is doing. So that's this modal add publisher. That's what this is, and that can be found in the views folder. Here, along with the other modals for adding subscriber, edit publisher, edit subscriber, so on and so forth. Right. So this whole form, this whole thing, sorry about that. This whole form actually makes a call to the ASP action add publisher. So it retrieves all of the information entered, and then it passes it to add publisher in the publisher controller, which would be here. Okay, so this function takes the model which we passed in from the modal that contains all of the information about the particular publisher and the information that we entered into the modal. And then from here, we collect the information that we passed, and then we make a call to the auto scheduler. And what the auto scheduler does is it will basically choose a server and terminal for us if we haven't done so. So if we leave that blank, the auto scheduler will handle that, and then it'll start the terminal. So let's actually go through the code for the auto scheduler. So let's go to autoschedule manager.autoschedule. Okay, so this actually makes a post request and adds this auto schedule request data to the body of the request. And as you can see, we retrieved the Forex account ID, the server ID, the terminal ID, and the expert ID. In this case, if you were to leave those fields empty, it would actually pass 0 for these two, but that's fine because the auto scheduler will handle it. So it goes here. Okay, so here we're getting our request data from the post request, and then we're actually passing that information down to the auto schedule function in the auto schedule service in the web API. So that's down here. Okay, so auto schedule here basically will it'll look at these parameters, and then it'll make a decision about which function to return. So in the case where we left both empty, we would go here to this one, no terminal or server selected because they're both 0. That is this, and then it essentially collects a ton of information about the terminal based on the information that we provided, which is just the Forex ID and the expert ID. And it does so by calling this get terminal to use function, and also the get server. It'll call get server to use first, and then it'll get the terminal from that server. So those are right. So get server to use basically looks for an active server, a server that's currently connected, and one that has the highest number of available terminals. And then if it determines that, if it finds a server a good one to use, then we'll go to get terminal to use, where it'll determine if we should use the terminal. We'll determine it by this criteria: if the terminal connection status is true, if the terminal is stopped, and if there is not a user currently holding the terminal or using it rather. Right. So and then we make we'll update the current state of the terminal in the database, and then we'll go back to terminal service and we'll start the terminal. Now let's go back to our controller. Right. So after that, we'll collect a ton of information about the publisher, all the information we need, including the report and the thumbnail, which this will actually be generated by MetaTrader. And then we'll simply add the new publisher to the database. Now, add subscriber is more of the same idea really. Starts with this view. Right, and then the form goes to this add subscriber function in the publisher controller. It retrieves the model, and then it also makes a call to the auto scheduler to determine which server and terminal to use. Okay, so now on to the edit. functionalities. So if we want to edit a publisher, that's actually coming from this modal, and this entire modal is a form, and it goes to manage publisher in the publisher controller. So essentially, they all kind of follow the same idea. And this also calls the autoscheduler if you were to leave these empty. And yeah, it just does more of the same thing. And then it calls edit publisher, which is the function to update a publisher. If it were a subscriber, it would be edit subscriber. So let me take you through that one. Right, so here we are edit publisher in the publisher manager, and it makes a post request to update publisher. We're also passing in the publisher ID. That's how we're identifying the publisher to update. And then we're passing in the information we retrieve from the modal into the body of the request. Okay, and then from here, so it retrieves the ID of the publisher and the information we retrieve from the modal, and it makes a call to update publisher in the publisher service. And then from here, it just collects the necessary information about the publisher, and then it updates that publisher based on the information that we provided. But it'll only do so if the publisher that we're passing in, the ID that we're passing in, that is actually an existing publisher. If not, it simply returns false. Lastly, I guess I'll go over deleting a publisher or a subscriber. So let's go back to the view here. That would be, let me just type it in. Okay, that is this. That is this here. So the message is, are you sure you want to delete this publisher? Here we're presented with that message. So what this does is it makes a URL action to delete publisher in the publisher controller. Okay, and then it's this is actually the web API. Sorry. Right, we want to see the publisher controller. Right, so when it deletes a publisher, it'll actually delete all of its subscribers as well. And then, as you already saw, the publisher manager, we make a call to the delete publisher and publisher manager, and then from there it makes a delete request to delete publisher in the publisher controller, and then it goes to the publisher service, and it makes a call to the repository to delete the publisher if this ID belongs to a real publisher. And what it actually does, if we go to the publisher table, is it'll set this here to True. And yeah, so I think that's it for now. Again, my name is Carlos Feliciano. I'm from the Fall 2019 EFWA team, and have a good one.